Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Susan Brown, Associate Curator and Acting Head of Textiles. I had the great pleasure of being the coordinating curator for the exhibition Contemporary Muslim Fashions at Cooper Hewitt. The exhibition originated at the De Young Museum in San Francisco in 2018, where it was curated by our moderator, Laura Camerlengo, and her colleague, Jill D'Alessandro, with Reina Lewis Consulting. The exhibition traveled to the Applied Arts Museum in Frankfurt, Germany last summer before opening at Cooper Hewitt in February. Contemporary Muslim Fashions is the first major museum exhibition to document the recent rise of the modest fashion industry. The exhibition features 80 ensembles from established and emerging designers in high-end fashion, streetwear, and sportswear, contextualized with photographs, social media, and video. Over 70% of the designers, artists, and influencers whose work is featured in the exhibition are Muslim women under 40. And through those channels, they share their views on entrepreneurship, inclusion, and ethical business practices. Today's conversation will address an important question. How can women's fashion, particularly modest fashion, become truly size inclusive? We welcome you to take part in the discussion using the chat box. And at the end of the hour, we'll open it up for live questions and comments. To do this, we ask that you navigate to the bottom of your screen and choose the option to raise your hand. You'll be invited to unmute, and then you can ask your question aloud. Or of course, you can also submit questions through the chat box. And now I am so honored to introduce Laura Camerlengo, Associate Curator of Costume and Textile Arts at the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco. Laura is a graduate of the Master's Program in the History of Design and Curatorial Studies, offered jointly by Cooper Hewitt with Parsons School of Design, and a former student of mine. So welcome back, Laura. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. And thank you for everyone for joining us as we explore current dialogues about size inclusivity within the modest fashion sector. I'm so excited to have our distinguished panelists with us today, and I'm hoping each of you can introduce yourselves to our audiences. Who would like to go first?
Ladies.
I'll go. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming. Hello, salams, peace, all that good stuff. My name is Leah V, and I am originally from Detroit and now located in New York City to build my brand. I am a plus size, body positive hijabi model that's been featured in Target, Torrid, London. Wherever you go, you see my face, okay? And I'm also an author of Unashamed Musings of a Fat Black Muslim, and I am a social media influencer. But deep down, I'm just a writer. But, you know, you have to do all the other things to get to where you want to be. So I'm multifaceted, but I'm excited to be here and educate and have a great discussion because this is going to be, it's going to be a lot of tea.
Thank you, Leah. Shireen?
Good midday, I guess, from the West Coast. Good afternoon to the East Coast. My name is Shireen Sabat. I founded Splash Gear Swimwear back in 2006, offering surf-inspired full coverage UV protective swimwear, primarily for the Muslim community, but I knew that there was a demand outside of the Muslim community. So I'm actually not a formally trained fashion designer. I'm actually a scientist, and this kind of fell into my lap, and it's been an interesting learning experience, let's just put it that way. But it's been fulfilling, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with Kareem and Leah on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Kareem?
Hello. Hi from Istanbul. It's 9 o'clock at night over here. And my name is Kerem Ture. I'm one of the founders of Modanisa.com. Modanisa is one of the first multi-brand modest fashion sites in the world. We are catering to 130 countries worldwide from Istanbul, and we have offices in London and Dubai.
Thank you. Thank each of you. We're so excited to have you with us. So as Susan mentioned, this panel is presented as a complement to contemporary Muslim fashions, which has been extended at the Cooper Hewitt through January 2021. So if you have yet to see it, keep an eye on their website for their reopening information. The exhibition presented a snapshot of the places, garments, and styles that were leading the modest fashion sector when the exhibition was researched and organized between 2016 and 2018. And at that time, there was some dialogue about size inclusivity in the modest fashion industry, but the topic hadn't come to the fore as it is today. And just a bit of terminology as we start for people who may just be learning about this topic. When we talk about inclusive sizing, we're talking about women's sizes that span from a 0 to a 32 and larger. In the US, since the mid 20th century, the term plus size has often been assigned to clothing that's larger than average. Average sizes are typically called standard sizes. They range typically from a 0 to a 12. And this is a very quick history, by the way, very quick overview. But what we're seeing in recent years, if you look at market data, is that the average women's dress size is actually between a 14 and a 16, which means that plus size is our new standard. And as a result, we're seeing steady growth in size inclusivity in the plus size market in the US and abroad, coinciding with changing bodies and also increased demand for fashionable plus size clothes. In the US, for reference, in 2019, the market for plus size clothing was valued at $28.9 billion. Globally, it was valued at $180 billion in 2019, up from $165 billion in 2017. So with all of this terminology and data in mind, I'd like to turn the panel back to our speakers and ask you if you can tell us about your history and experiences with size inclusivity within the modest fashion sector. For our designers, when did you first start to offer more inclusive sizes and why? And for our influencer, for Leah, how did you come to join this dialogue? And Leah, I wonder if you want to go first.
Wow, it's a lot of layers here. A lot of layers. I'm going to try not to, because I'm so passionate about this topic that I sometimes go on tangents. So please, if I start going on tangents, just be like, let's reel it back in. So in response to like the first part of what you were saying, when it comes to modest fashion and inclusivity, it's not it. It's really not. I'm not even talking about just the US. This is just everywhere. I and many other individuals, whether they're Muslim or Jewish individuals who are plus size, who want to dress modestly, they don't have access. It's very exclusive. When we see, just for an example, if you guys go on Instagram and you look up the hashtag modest fashion or hijabi fashion, what you're going to see is a lot of white passing or white adjacent, straight size, pastel, okay? Very angelic-like images. You're not going to see someone like me representing hijabi fashion or modest fashion. It's very off-putting. It's very sad. I have never been, none of like the major modest fashion brands have ever come to me for anything. They've never even tried to reach out. I've actually pitched a couple, not gonna name any names. I've pitched a couple and they're not into it because I don't fit into what they deem as hijabi fashion, modest fashion. And when we talk about that, the other layer is just the anti-Blackness in that as well. And the kinds of exclusion of Black and brown Muslims who are plus size in that industry. I know so many Muslim women and so many modest women who would like to be included in this discussion and be, included in the sizing. A lot of the companies, they don't go past the extra large. And sometimes those extra larges are actually a large. So to loop back around to me and my brand, I dress. So some people say I dress modestly, some people say I don't. That's up to interpretation, culture, religion, whatever you want to say. Sometimes I wear a bodysuit and a hijab, and sometimes I wear a long flowing dress. It just depends on my mood, but I'm still Muslim and very much so proud of that. So with my brand, it is a little edgy, but I started this because I didn't see anyone who looked like me, not only in the plus size sector, but also the hijabi modest sector either. So I was just an in-betweenie. I was too much for them and also too much for this, which means I was othered. What I didn't know is that there are so many people who wanted to see someone like me kind of infiltrate this business, this movement of modest fashion. And I want to see more modest fashion, hijabi fashion. I want to see more of different kinds of bodies, more different kinds of physical abilities. Not just wearing traditional wrapped hijab. Maybe we just hit you with a turban. Maybe we don't hit you with a turban, and she's still very much so Muslim. And this can like spiral into so many different discussions. I'm sure that we're gonna get into the levels and layers of this. But I just think that right now, with it being 2020 and we're all about inclusivity, people like to say this word. People like to very lightly touch the surface of what they deem is out of the box, but not really doing anything at all. And it's just like, honey, that's not it. You literally put maybe a curvy girl in the right places on your ad, who's like racially ambiguous, and then you slap a turban on her and be like, oh my God, we've done it, you guys. We've done it, it's done. The world is inclusive. And that's not it. That's not it.
Thank you. Shireen and Karim, anything you want to add and to talk about your own practices as designers?
Well, once upon a time, I was not a hijabi, and then I became a hijabi. And that's when, Splash Gear grew out of that from a personal crisis. Because at the time I'd become a certified scuba diver. And the question is, well, how am I going to, recreate in the water? How am I going to go swimming? How am I going to go snorkeling now that I'm hijabi? So this all arose out of a personal crisis. And then I started thinking, well, how do other Muslim women swim? What do they wear? And then I realized, oh, they don't. And then all of a sudden, this problem that I didn't know existed now became real for me. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm like, well, Muslim women don't do that. Well, what about, some other, and then it just got big. Oh, Jewish women, well, religious women, oh, we don't even see large size women at the beach or the pool. So this problem just literally, the layers grew. It was like an onion from the inside out. And it was a problem I never knew existed until it happened to me, until I experienced it. Before, I was completely oblivious. And so I realized even before I founded Splash Gear, even before it became a reality and it launched, I already knew that I was going to design a swimwear line, a full coverage, modest swimwear line, not just for modesty conscious religious women, but it was going to include plus sizes. It was going to include larger sizes because these women were not being represented just as equally as Muslim women. And then I was talking to a gentleman one day who happened to be evangelical Christian. And I was explaining to him the idea of this full coverage swimwear line that I'm going to design. And he looked at me and he immediately implored me. He implored me, please, you have to add large sizes. Those women need something too. And he kept strongly encouraging me, please, you need to add larger sizes for these women. So I'm guessing he must have had family friends, he knew women in his community who were also being neglected. So I already knew from the outset, before Splash Gear was launched, that I was going to add plus sizes to include those women alongside the modesty conscious religious women. So that's how, Splash Gear has been size inclusive from the very start.
Thank you. And what about Modernisa?
Laura, Modernisa's journey started with the desire for inclusivity. Actually, it was an uprising for inclusivity. In 2011, when I look around the brands, there were only 5 brands in Turkey who is serving to the modest women's fashion needs. When you look to the other side, you see 2,000. This is in Turkey, where 99% of the women are Muslim and 65% is dressing modest. It was insane. But I was hearing stories about, people are buying 2 shirts and adding sleeves to each other to make it a long sleeve. It was insane. And when we see it, it's unfair. It's Turkey, 99% Muslim and 65% modest, and it's a textile country. Imagine then I started to imagine what it is like in Texas, what it is like in Australia or in Germany. And I tried to convince people to, get together and form a site. And everybody was hesitant about it. They said, okay, our people are conservative. They don't buy from internet. That was the answer. And I said, I will do it. And then bring me your collection, alter your connection for modest ladies, and let's start it. That's how we started. And we think that every woman, regardless of their belief, regardless of their religion, needs to look their best and feel comfortable without compromising their beliefs and their values. That's how we started. And after 2 years, for the first 2 years, that was, bringing the bread to the market. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about the modest wear. And then we realized that there is one more inclusivity has to be there. It's the size inclusivity. Not only for the plus size, also petite size. And also for the pregnant women. They all want to look chic, and they are the part of the society, and they deserve it. Then we started after 2 years. We started our private label called Alia. Since then, that brand is in the top 5 of Modernisa collection every year. And now, right now, we have more than 850 labels, and most of them women, and selling at Modernisa to 130 countries. And this is our brief story at Modernisa, how we started.
Thank you. And I appreciate you bringing in also maternity sizing and petite sizing into the dialogue as well. I do want to ask our designers, could you talk about, as we're with our National Design Museum today, if you could talk about how your design process works for more size inclusive clothing. Many designers and retailers know you can't simply scale up straight clothes for a larger size. That fit and body shape need to be taken into consideration.
Well, with Splash Gear, we have swim separates. We have swim shirts, swim bottoms, and hair covers. And from the beginning, again, just to remind people, this wasn't my career choice, and this fell in my lap, and so I had to learn. And a lot of resources, personal resources went into this. So in the beginning, when it came to designing the line, I wanted swim bottoms that we're not going to have a fixed waist. And a fixed waist, for those who may not be familiar with the terminology, be like a pair of jeans, a pair of trousers. And I was told by the initial production manager that I was working with, if you're gonna offer swim bottoms with fixed waists, you're gonna have to offer a lot of sizes. So you can think of like jeans and how many sizes are offered in jeans to cover as many people. And I just didn't have the resources, and I wasn't going to use elastic because I wanted it to last a long time. I wanted to be a secure fit. So I actually thought, well, let's use a draw cord waist. And a draw cord waist is going to be wide enough to slip over the hips, and then one could cinch it down at the waist with a cord lock. So right then and there, the design for the Splash Gear swim bottoms lent itself actually to scaling up, because you could have the same size fit different shaped bodies, and all they had to do was just cinch it down to their waist, wherever that was. And to be honest, that wasn't a deliberate design element for size inclusivity. That was just a practical design decision just for financial reasons. I just couldn't afford for the first production run to produce so many sizes. So this was just a practical solution. But I think that it works well in that situation to cover as many different body shapes, because that is true. The same size is going to fit the resort pants, but because of the different body shapes, they can just cinch it down to their comfort level. That, in addition to, because it is modest swimwear, and because I've designed it according to Islamic dress code, there's roominess. The cut of the swim bottoms, there's enough roominess. It's not baggy, but there's enough roominess to move around. And again, both that, in addition to the draw cord waist, I think just what was a great solution and addressed that issue up front without realizing that I was going to address that issue.
Oh, that's great. And what about at Modanisa?
I guess we were lucky at the beginning because we had a great fit lady who put it all together, who knows the mathematics of it, and we were okay when we started from the zero. Even though I'm not coming from textile or from design, I was lucky with that. But on the other hand, we were also promoting it to our labels to cater the plus size needs. And some of our labels learn it in a very, very hard way because simply scaling up the size is not the thing. It's like the plus size has its own design details. It's like arms, knees, mesh proportions. They're all different. You can't simply scale it up. Some of them failed to do in a right way, but everyone is learning now. Like we're promoting the ones who is doing well, and when they see it, they're doing it. It works well.
Thank you. And Leah, I'm hoping we can talk more about your personal experiences. You talked about when you first started engaging online, the idea of size inclusivity and body positivity started around a group of diverse women of different races, shapes, and sizes, celebrating themselves and expressing self-love. And this goes against traditional fashion media and representations, particularly in the fashion media. What we're seeing though on social media is this conversation of body positivity turning back to the sort of, I'm using air quotes, everyone, fashionable ideal, the slim white body that we often see in the fashion media. And at the same time, in the course of your career, we're seeing you go to collaborate with major brands like you're talking about, like Target. How do you feel about this shift in the concept of body positivity on social media in recent years, and also the embrace of size inclusivity by major brands?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first started, it was kind of a joke. My friends are like, because I was always a writer and no one would ever listen to my stories. Teachers would be like, oh, you're such a good writer. And I'm like, no one cares about my writing. So I got on Instagram on a whim and didn't take it seriously. And then I stumbled upon the body positive hashtag. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is 7 years ago. I'm like, this is amazing. Like there are like Black women with big boobs and big hips, and they are like getting money out here. They got the men, and I've never seen that in Detroit. You know, I'm from Michigan, and where I'm from, it's just like you kind of hide yourself away. You make yourself as little as possible. And I was just like, damn, like this is what I want to do. Like I want to be like that loud, big Black Muslim girl, like swinging off a vine with like a big stupid turban on my head. Like that's what I wanted and never seen it. I didn't think it was possible. And of course, media makes it seem like it's not possible to live your best life in the body you're in now. And so it's, again, like I didn't see anybody who looked like me. There were no Muslims. There was not one like plus size Muslim girl who covered in the game at all. And so of course I started to take it seriously. And again, I fell on deaf ears because I didn't fit into anything. People didn't know what to do with me. And at some point I'm just like, if you want to do this, you're gonna have to do it your own way. You're gonna have to be loud and obnoxious. You're gonna have to keep getting doors slammed in your face. But if you feel like this is worth it, which I did, and people around me did, thank God, because I almost quit 17,000 times. If you feel like it's worth it, then go for it. And at one point, I dropped a dead weight. And by dead weight, I mean my ex got divorced. And then 6 months after, my career started to blow up and companies were like interested in me, not just because I think the aesthetic, but because of what I stood for. They're like, this girl has been in this industry where she's constantly gotten door slammed in her face. Like she is definitely not a small plus or just like a curvy 12, 14. And we're gonna see like how this works. And brands started messing with me. And when I got Target, I was so shocked because it's Target. Like that's everyone's dream. It's like work with a brand that's like global. And I was just so shocked because they could have picked from a strew of acceptable plus size girls. They could have picked from a strew of hijabis that have millions of followers, but they picked me. And that says a lot. Like, I know like all companies aren't 100% like perfect, and I'm never gonna agree with capitalism in any type of way, but things like that say a lot about how things are changing. With that said, it's not enough. I feel like now with the body positive movement, it's kind of become too commercial. And the fact that, again, if you look at the hashtags, what you're going to see is societally girls who are like, you know, still like meet the beauty standards, who are kind of like capitalizing off of it. You see a lot of white women doing yoga. You see a lot of fat phobia mixed in there. It was like, okay, well, long as you're this big, but not this big, you're welcome, but you know, you're not really welcome if you're this big. And so now we see a lot of the commercialization of the body positive movement and the whitewashing and culture vulturing of the body positive movement. And that's not where it started. It was very diverse, very inclusive. And now, you know, when companies get a hold of something, it starts to turn into a money machine. And so I'm still a part of the movement because I feel like it will be a dishonor for me to leave the movement, because that means that I've let them win. So I cannot just abandon the movement. Will I tell the truth about the movement? I will. Will I keep it 100? I will. But at the same time, it will be an injustice for me to leave right now, because I am the only fat Black hijabi who's signed to 3 agencies, who has a book out, who's like pulling the numbers and pulling the companies that I'm pulling. And so I can't stop doing this, because there's other plus size Muslim girls out there who don't fit those standards, who are just like, dang, like if she can, then I can. And that's when it comes to representation, and proper representation, not the crumbs, but the proper hardcore representation, where it's just like, I see myself in this person. That's so powerful.
And I love how much you put yourself out there and allow yourself in many ways to be vulnerable through your sharing on Instagram in particular. I was watching your stories last week, and you talked about how your own feelings and views of yourself have shifted with more modeling opportunities. And I was wondering if you could talk to us today about that as well.
Yeah. So we're getting into the body dysmorphia. And so it's a term that, I mean, people really, I mean, I didn't know about body dysmorphia until like a little bit later on, as I got more into mental illness, mental health, wellness and stuff like that. There was a point in time where I would not look at myself in mirrors, because I felt like I was so hideous, so ugly, just unworthy, just disgusting to look at. Mind you, I look the same as I do like back in the day. I look the same, but my mindset has definitely changed, but it still creeps in. And so for people who don't know what body dysmorphia is you see a distorted version of yourself. It can be very light, where it's just like, oh, my nose, oh, my double chin, to like very high, where it's just like, I need to get surgery, I need to nip tuck, I need to slice dice, to very, very high body dysmorphia. And so it's really interesting because I feel like I'm two people sometimes. Like, you have this very, very confident, like ferocious Leo girl, and then you have like this little kitten in the corner shaking and afraid and wondering why people even like me and look at me and ask me to speak on panels. So it is interesting because I got the storefront of Torrid, and my followers were sending me this huge picture of my face, and I'm getting like dozens of messages through Facebook, Instagram, text messages, like, oh my God, I see your face at the mall in Toronto, and I'm just like, oh my God. And so my first reaction, because the body dysmorphia was kicking in, it was just like, they picked an ugly picture, you look really fat, why are you in the storefront and not a size 12, 14 girl? Why are you in the storefront? And that should never have been the first thought, but it was. And I've noticed that as I'm starting to be more visible, as I'm starting to be in more commercials and storefronts and working with e.l.f. and all these companies, it is kind of doing something to me. It's weird, because I'll feel like great about it, and the next day I'm like, why are you on there? You're really, really big. You're not worthy enough to be on there. And so I'm battling with that. I guess the overexposure of my face and body on things. It's a very weird parallel that I've not found the answer to. I'm just kind of sharing it with people and letting them know, like, just because you model or you're popping on the Instagram doesn't mean you don't have like these deeper rooted issues of like body dysmorphia, anxiety, imposter syndrome. So I feel like it's I need to share that with my followers and to be as transparent as possible about it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And everybody, if you're watching, please share your support for Leah in our chat and send some love, because that's a lot of vulnerability to put yourself out there in that way and to share that journey that you're on right now. Thinking about your journey as well, you have been talking and posting a lot about your wellness journey and going to yoga and parasailing. And I wonder if you could perhaps talk also about your experiences finding and wearing athletic apparel, because that does dovetail with some of the clothing discussion we're having today.
So I have worked with a couple like major clothing brands. One actually I'm working with this week, and you guys will see it later. And so I'm excited to see like what they have. I worked with one, not gonna name any names, but I noticed that because I wear a 3X, 4X on the bottom, but I have a really big butt and a really big hips and a smaller waist. And what I'm noticing is that the sizing can be very, very off in that. It's like, oh, it fits great in the hips and great in the leg area, but now my butt's not covered because not enough like fabric. And so I love like exercise clothes, and I love doing I guess activities where you don't really see fat people doing. So you just mentioned like the parasailing and the kayaking and the hiking and stuff like that. Like I am not the most like physical person. I have arthritis in both knees. So a girl be struggling, okay? I be struggling. But I think it's important for me to wear exercise clothes and show me doing some random parasailing trip while I'm screaming. It's good to show images of fat people, plus size people, obese people, whatever you want, thick with 2 C's, whatever you want to call it. Like it's important for us to see people who are not usually represented being active. If you look at any of the active brands, you can just randomly just Google like hiking. Who are you gonna see? Google yoga. Who are you gonna see? It's like, it's not just me talking crap. This is what the world is. They show a certain kind of body. That's the only body that can be active, the only body that can wear, active clothing and do these things and be, outdoorsy. And so I purposely like share these things, no matter if I'm struggling, I'm sweating, looking crusty. I'm gonna share those things with you because you need to see that, not just fat people, but straight size people as well. Like you need to see people, and we need to normalize hijabis, modest people who don't really get a say in anything, see them being active and living their best lives.
And Shireen, I wonder if you have anything as our sportswear designer that you want to add to the conversation there as well. Particularly, I recall from your advertisements that you tried to also use a diversity of women when you were featuring your products and things like that as well.
I actually wanted to touch on, it was a good segue what Leah was saying. And I actually did want to go back to the question of when it comes to designing, athletic wear, or there is a challenge though, because so for example, when one designs a particular style or garment in a line, there's an objective, or there is a purpose, a goal for that particular style or garment. And so for example, Splashgear has 2 swim shirts. The resort shirt is tunic length, and then the island shirt, which is hip length and has a tapered waist. And that shirt, the island shirt, is based off the surfer rash guard. That it all started, just from surf wear and scuba wear. And so then when it comes to the plus size range, one really can't offer the island shirt in plus sizes because of that tapered waist. It's not going to look aesthetically well on a large size person. It's not going to function the same. So then there are these challenges. Okay, well, there's certain garments in the line for certain functions, for certain reasons. Some you can definitely offer in plus sizes, and so Splashgear has those. But then there are others where you question, is there a demand for it? With the swim bottoms, we have the straight leg resort style, but then we have the skirted pants because more conservative women wanted that. So Splashgear, we cater to a spectrum of women who purchase it for sun sensitive reasons, women who are Muslim but are not fully, hijabis, and then women who are very conservative, they won't even wear pants out in public. So we do offer a wide range of styles to cater to a wide range of clientele. But then with the skirted pants, I was very hesitant to offer that in plus size because I wasn't sure how would it look on a larger size woman, and would there be demand for it? So there is this interplay, this dynamic of what do you offer in plus, and then the question is, how far do you go in the scale? So Splash Gear offers 1X plus 1X plus 2X 3X 4X, but then do we go to 5X? Do we go to 6X? Do we go to so there is a challenge there. So I'm very happy that we are able to offer half the line in plus size, but it gets tricky sometimes trying to figure out when it comes to certain style or design, what the size range should be or can be. And as far as representation, again, the Muslim community is very diverse ethnically, so I definitely wanted to represent women from that diverse background, from the diverse ethnic and cultural background. But then again, there are Muslim women who don't fully cover, from head to toe, and then there are other women who do. So yes, just representing many different kinds of women was really important to Splash Gear. And yeah, that's, but I did want to touch upon that point that Leah brought up.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing up also the diversity of the women who shop and dress modestly. I'm wondering if we could talk a bit more and have your ideas shared about what you feel the modest fashion industry can do to further inclusivity, both size inclusivity and also racial and ethnic diversity.
So when we talk about size inclusive, I remember this conversation when I was a kid, when I was still a kid in junior high, high school. That's when really the size inclusivity conversation started going mainstream. And there was backlash by the fashion industry at the time. I remember this. So this conversation is not new. This goes back decades. And while I do agree that there has been some change, I shop at Target all the time, and I do see the larger size mannequins. I see the larger size models in the photographs, and it's great. It's a breath of fresh air. And I'm actually right there. I'm the 14, 16 right there, right? I'm out of the Mrs. size range and I'm entering the plus size. But so I do see some change there. And there are other like print ads or billboard where you do see some changes where larger size models are being represented. But here's the thing, we focused a lot on adult women, large size, plus size adult women who have pushed this movement. But we don't see plus size men. We don't see plus size children.
That's true.
And if you look at it, it's really in childhood where this all starts. Childhood is where all the trauma starts. And so you have children, you have large size children who are going to be subject to bullying. You're going to have large size children who are going to be made less than. And I don't see them in the Gap commercials. I'm not picking on Gap. It's just they have a lot of commercials. I don't see them in Old Navy commercials. These brands are great. I'm not knocking the brands, but they sell children's clothing lines, and I don't see large size plus size children, not even at Target. So I really think if you're going to talk about size inclusivity, particularly, we need to focus on more than adult women. Adult women, we're not the only fat people in this country. There are others. There are the men who get totally ignored, and I'm sure they have body image issues as well. But it's the children. You got to start with the children, representing them. I do see, I have started seeing, I haven't seen anybody talk about this, and I haven't read anything about this, so I don't know if it's just me, but I noticed a pre-Barack Obama and a post-Barack Obama on television, where I started seeing a lot more African Americans in commercials. And it was just very obvious to me. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but I think there is more ethnic representation that has happened. Companies and brands, maybe they got permission after Barack Obama became president to start representing more. So I have seen more ethnic representation. I've seen hijabi women on commercials, and I'll have to do like a double take. I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? Honey, did you see that? So I have started seeing that, and we just have to continue down that road. We need to see more Far East Asian representation, for example. But when it comes to size inclusivity, I think just expanding the group to not just include adult women, especially including the children.
Karim, would you like to go next?
Yeah, what I can say is there are 400 million addressable Muslim women in the world. And they, as Shireen says, there's a wide spectrum. The industry needs to know that one style fits all approach is not going to work, because there's a lot of different ethnicities and different cultures, different climates. Things are different there. And if you want to be inclusive globally, you need to look to the other regions, look to the other cultures, and see what they want, and see their ethnic heritages, see their shapes that shapes their styles and their life, the colors, fabrics, and the patterns. It is, again, it's not one style fits all. When it comes to the size inclusivity, the American size inclusivity and the Middle Eastern size inclusivity design practices are also different from each other. For example, in Middle East, there is an abaya culture. Abaya is a long overcoat women take on when they go out. It is the plus size, designing plus size for an Gulf country and designing a plus size for an American women is, American modest women is completely different from each other. The industry needs to spot it and look at it. And that's why at Modernisa, 4 years ago, we started to organize the world's the first modest fashion weeks. We gather modest fashion designers from all around the world to interact with each other, see the different angles and see the cultural touches and inspire each other. That's how modest fashion can be a mainstream fashion.
Thank you. Leah, anything you want to add?
Sorry, I was listening and absorbing everything.
You can also say no. It's totally up to you.
I think enough was said.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you all one more question, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And again, if you have questions for our panelists, please submit it into the Q&A function. So there's been discussion in some media outlets recently about the impact of COVID-19 on the size inclusive and plus size retail market broadly. For example, Ascena Retail Group, which owns Lane Bryant, among other stores, recently filed bankruptcy. Do you see repercussions financially throughout that we're seeing in the broader market? Do you think they will impact the production of size inclusive modest fashion?
I can start.
Sure.
At the beginning, yes, we saw the negative effects of the pandemic, first 2 to 3 weeks. Then it started to pick up again. And we are a little luckier than the physical stores because we are a .com, and it was easier for us to pick up at the beginning, of course. And what I see is there won't be, when I look to my collection, yes, this year we will be producing less party clothes, less swimwear, less resort looks. But we'll be, of course, producing more relaxing, the homeware and the casual wear and the sportswear will be producing more. It's like some parts will be lower, but some parts it will take the place.
Thank you. Shireen?
So as a reminder, though, and I actually don't know what Ascena's plan is with Lane Bryant with the label. But filing Chapter 11, it doesn't necessarily mean going out of business. Oftentimes it means restructuring, it's really getting out of debt from the creditors is really the bottom line. But sometimes that does lead to closing the company. So we'll have to see what happens. But here's the thing, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, but because of the internet age, because of the social media age, I'd be very surprised if that void wasn't filled by up and coming designers, designers who are at home sewing their designs. They're the ones who are going to fill those large sized women are going to fill that void. They're going to start promoting their own designs, as I said, on social media, via the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So on the one hand, we can say maybe in the very short term, some brands, and I'm very sorry to hear about Lane Bryant, because they had some great styles, but it is going to be, in the short term, it would be very sad to see these, if they disappear. It's going to be very sad to see that, but I think it's going to be quickly filled. That void will be quickly filled by independent, up and coming, rising designers, who are at home. They may or may not be formally trained, but there's a demand. If there's a demand, if there's a will, there's a way. And so I think you might even see a proliferation of designers on social media sharing their thoughts and their ideas and their creativity to fill that void.
Yeah, I agree with Shireen.
Sorry.
I'll go. Yeah, I agree with Shireen. Like some of these again, I'm not trying to hate on Lane Bryant, but it's not my style. I know they fill the void. And I'm all for in with the new. I do believe that, fat girls, modest girls, we're gonna always want to be fly, like that's period. And so I do believe that there's going to be a way for more independent designers. I think some of these larger brands have gotten a little bit too comfortable anyway. And I think something that 2020 has taught all of us, not just the big brands, is that you can and will be done if you are not going to roll with what the people want. We've seen this politically. We've seen this just racially. We've seen this in all types of levels. Like 2020 has humbled me greatly, okay? Because I was like on top. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff. 2020 came, was like, no, you're not. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it humbled us all. And these companies need to understand that you are catering to people and you are nothing without people who purchase your items. And this is just, this is something for us all to think in the back of our minds, who are entrepreneurs, designers, who are influencers, teachers, whoever you are. Is just like, you have to roll with it and you have to become more inclusive. I always tell people, like, you can continue your rigid way of thinking of how you want to run your business, but at the end of the day, social media has opened up so many channels of just like new talent, new raw talent, underrepresented individuals who never had a chance like 20 years ago have made brands and gotten deals. Like, they're doing it. And like, I'm excited to be a part. I know people talk crap about social media and how it's so bad and we're doing too much. And there's always a bad side to anything, but social media has afforded me a lot of opportunities that I would have never gotten if I was not on Instagram. And so for that, I use it as a tool, as we all do and should do. Is it real life? No, but it sure as hell have given me a voice and boosted my career and many others that would have never gotten a chance. So these companies, they gotta become more inclusive and become more fluid in their thinking and in their business models and how they're gonna market their stuff, because no one's safe.
Thank you. And thank you for touching on your personal experiences, because we're opening up Q&A. And our first question is from a woman named Mariana. And I think we're going to have her come on the screen and ask her question. And sorry, everyone, there might be a slight delay as we get the technology up and running. Oh, okay. Okay, so I can just ask her a question. I'm getting a cue from Megan in our education side. So for you, Leah, I'm a graduate student in public health and aspiring modest model. I'm not a Muslim, I am Muslim, but not a hijabi, but working towards it. What advice do you have for connecting with photographers, etc.?
Okay, that's a good question. So, how can I I'm trying to give you like a good, because like it's a whole situation trying to model. I mean, it is very, very difficult because it's so saturated with social media. Social media has, I mean, you guys know the term, the Instagram model term, where everybody and their mama is an Instagram model, right? They're all doing the heavy filtering, the same Instagram makeup. They're doing the same outfits. It's the same, all the same TikTok dances. And so it is so difficult to break through this industry. Not to say that to like discourage you, because if you want to do something, do it no matter what anyone says. One thing about it is you have to, if you don't fit into, I guess, the standardized model look, or if you go to, let's say, a website in which you want to apply to be a model, and you look at their whatever the size requirements, look requirements, and you don't fit into them. So now you have to make your own. How I started personally with the photographers and the modeling is that I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take my phone. I had a grainy Android, and I'm going to put together cool looks and then post them online. But I'm going to take it a step further and not be like, hey, look at me. I'm cute and pretty and attractive. I'm going to actually talk about real world shit. That's what I'm going to do. And so with that, I created a whole brand. I wasn't doing what all the other influencers were doing. They were like, I'm cute. Look at the celebrity I'm with. Pictures. Oh my God, selfies. I was like, okay, I'm going to be cute and all that. Okay, and beat my face to the gods. But I'm also going to hit you with some discrimination stuff. I'm going to hit you with some body dysmorphia. I'm going to hit you with my ex acting crazy. So I took this and created a whole brand around it. I think sometimes we have to think a little bit bigger on bigger terms. Like I think a lot of us, and I'm including myself, I'm not like, not including myself, we think too small. Also, we have to understand, why do we want to model? Like, is there a reason why you want to do this? Because if your intentions are not right, not saying you personally, but if your intentions are to just get validation, get people telling you you're pretty, to get likes and shares, then you don't need to model. Like you don't. So please check your intentions, see if they're right. Are you trying to fill a void? Do you feel like your body, yourself, your face is not represented? Are you trying to be a change maker? Are you trying to be an icon? Or are you trying to get validation? Because a lot of people reach out to me, it's like, oh my God, Leah, I just want to take pictures. And I tell them the real deal. They're like, no, thank you. Because there's a business behind what I do. So I would say, get that phone, get the iPhone. Don't wait for photographers. Get your iPhone out, get your camera out, invest in a camera, and start taking your pictures. Have a friend take them, start posting them, and start trying to figure out, how can I create my nook in this industry? And if your intentions are good and your stuff is great, people will come to you.
Thank you. We have a question for our designers from Carol Spears. How much consideration is given during the design phase to the vast variety in women's frame size? For example, something that would be fabulous on a 5'7" woman would be unacceptable on a 5-foot frame. The V-neck hits differently, as does the hemline.
So here's the problem that has existed with off the rack. You're never going to find something that's going to be perfect every single time off the rack. That's always been a problem. I mean, even just for, you know, the Mrs. sizes. To be honest, I think the smaller sizes luck out the best, but even petite women will complain. So it's never ever going to be perfect for everybody. That's just something that has to be accepted as a designer. You do your best, but there are some people you're going to miss. But it comes back down to the style and the design. So with full coverage swimwear, I think, again, it's a little bit easier because there is no V-neck, right? There is no, we offer 3 different inseams in the swim bottoms, the petite, short, the regular, and the tall length. But even then, I've had women say, well, the tall isn't long enough, you know? So how far do you go? How far do you go with the size range? And so I take into consideration, when it comes to the line, you know, how many people do I want to cover? Meaning, I don't mean cover as in fabric. I mean the population, right? The demographic. How much of that do I want to include in the size in the sizing. So yeah, and some people, maybe the shoulders, some are broad, some droop, and so sometimes the item isn't going to look great on every single person, and you try to minimize it, but it's true, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
It's a pain in the industry right now, like especially for the .com businesses, because most of the returns are coming because of the fit problems. One brand's 2X large is an X large for another brand. It's like when we have 800 brands, it's not easy to standardize them, and it is trying it, or when you have your brand, that when you have your fit, I guess you need to follow that brand and follow the magic fit of that brand for your body.
And Leah, do you have anything you want to add?
What was the question again?
Just about the design phase and different sizing. I didn't know if you had any input. I saw on our Q&A that you might want to answer the question.
No, that was a mistake.
It's okay, no worries. It's a brave new museum world. So our next question comes from Jill D'Alessandro. Jill is my partner in crime at the Fine Arts Museums in San Francisco. She is the curator in charge of costume and textile arts and also co-curator of contemporary Muslim fashions. And we're going to try to get her up on the screen to ask her question. And I believe it is for Shireen.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jill.
Okay, we're just tuning in 1 second.
Well, I can actually read her question in the Q&A too.
Sure, and I can read it out loud, I guess, for the group. So the question is for Shireen from Jill. It says, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and thoroughness of your design decisions. Oh wait, Jill's here, yay. Hey, Jill. Can you hear us?
We can see her, but we can't hear her.
Oh, she disappeared.
Okay. So I'll keep going with the question. I was especially impressed with your thoughts on children's clothing. How does your background in science inform your analytical approach? And how do your Muslim beliefs inform your moral code in design?
So I'm going to answer the second question first. This was super important. At the time, I don't know how many people in your audience remember this or know this history. People will remember the burkini ban in France a few years ago, but I don't know how many people actually know the history of full coverage swimwear or modesty conscious swimwear for women of faith. But at the time that Splash Gear launched in 2006, there were only other 3 brands in the world. The first one in 2000 was in Egypt, and they called it the Sharia swimsuit. The second one was actually in Turkey. Hashima, the Turkish company, came out, and that was 2003. And then Australia, the Burkini brand, and then in the USA, Splash Gear in 2006. And at that time, even when I was thinking, I knew there was a need. I was encouraged to follow it, but I knew who wouldn't know, who wouldn't realize at the time that this was revolutionary. Full coverage swimwear, are you crazy? People looked at you like, and I was very careful who I told this to because of the reactions I would get. Now it's I won't call it mainstream, but it's common enough. People have heard it. Maybe somebody's seen a Muslim woman on the beach, and it's not so strange anymore. But back then it was crazy talk. It was unheard of. And you're going to drown if you wear that much and go swimming. And there was a lot of hostility against the idea. I know Hashima actually got a lot of negative backlash from their own countrymen, from Turkish people and Europeans. And this was a big, big deal at times. So I knew I had to tread carefully, because if I didn't design something that was Islamically compliant, it was going to be rejected by the Muslim community. So it was super important to me. And I know Leah has talked about how we have a spectrum of Muslims in our community, men and women. Some are super conservative dressers, and then others are very liberal. And so I think a lot of people in our society, you know, you're not, that's not shared, you know, in the media here. Everybody looks at the woman who's wearing all black, and that's how all Muslim women dress, and they're forced to, and da 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 da. But we have a very diverse community within the Muslim community, and so you have women across a broad range, across a broad spectrum of dress. But I knew that if I was going to put out something called modest swimwear for Muslim women, it had to abide by the consensus ruling on Islamic dress code for women. There's an Islamic dress code for men, but I wasn't making swimwear for men. I was making swimwear for women. And so there's an Islamic dress code for women. And so it had to not be skin tight. It had to not be transparent. It had to not be revealing. It had to fit that criteria. And I was, you know, I start shaking in my boots, you know, at the thought of you know, being attacked and being criticized, because I didn't want this idea to die, you know, whether it's my company or not my company. I just didn't want this idea to die. So there was a lot of hostility from non-Muslims and a lot of skepticism and hostility from the Muslim community, saying there's no such thing as modest swimwear, men and women shouldn't be swimming together anyway, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I felt strongly that I had to tread carefully and design, you know, something that was very Islamically compliant. And then the style has evolved. You do see a lot of brands in this sphere where it is skin tight, it is this, it is that, it is the other thing, because different women, you know, have different tastes and different needs. But it was super important for me to stick to, you know, a code, you know, to stick to the consensus ruling for Islamic dress. And I think that has contributed to the success of Splashy, because a lot of Muslim women won't wear the skin tight suits, et cetera, or the shorts, or the, you know, sleeveless, et cetera. As far as the size, so you know, I mentioned earlier, I'm a scientist. That's my background, not fashion. And so I approached it from an analytical point of view. Before I started the company, I just went to the market. I went to the sporting goods store, you know, got some hiking pants, got some rash guards, and tested them in the pool. And I had a little table with, you know, different characteristics, and I would check them, you know, just trying to be as scientific as possible. What worked, what didn't work, what kind of designs and cuts worked, what kind of designs didn't work, the fabric, et cetera, et cetera. So then when I went to source the materials, they had to meet a certain criteria. They had to drape a certain way. So I use fabric for the swim bottoms that are basically, they're the same exact thing as men's board shorts, because it gives it that, you know, it gives it structure so that it doesn't immodestly stick to the legs when it's wet. The fabric has to be chlorine proof. It has to be quick drying, et cetera, et cetera. So I did approach it from more of an analytical point of view to make sure that the performance, that the fabrics and the cuts were going to perform exactly how I wanted them to. So there was a lot of analytical thinking put in, little things like in the pant legs, the cuffs of the pant legs, the leg openings, I discovered, oh, that has to be stiff. So I put some stiffener in there so that when the person comes out of the water, it'll stay open and not collapse and stick, you know, immodestly to the leg. So there was a lot of detail and thinking that went into it. And it's probably from my scientific training and way of viewing the world. So that's probably how that came about.
Thank you. So we have a question from Rachel for our designers. To what extent do you believe it's important to engage directly with your customers and the modest, religious, POC, and plus size communities in order to make your products as inclusive as possible? Do you have any ideas on how you can implement engagements like this to guide your business as they develop?
I can take it.
Please.
It's like we are serving to 130 countries. It is like, and we are online, and we need to listen to our customers every day. And like they are talking to us via email or under the posts, they are writing messages, and they're calling us in every way. They are reaching out to us. It's like we are getting great insights from them. That's how we we draw our way to the next season. This is very important for us to do. And what I can say is, for example, during this COVID crisis, we were talking about how we can serve the community, and we learned that it's like having a mask with a hijab is a thing. It's not easy to do. And then our designers started to design the hijab-friendly masks. Now we have, more than 100 different curations at Modernisa today, and you can, from the lace to the sports masks, all kind of masks that you can find over there. It's we are getting the pulse of the modest women, not only in one region, it's all around the world, and that's a very exciting thing for us. That gives us to serve the community better every day.
Thank you. Shireen, do you have anything you want to
Well,
add?
customer feedback is critical. Customer feedback has informed Splash Gear. It has helped me to redesign certain garments for better comfort. When it comes to colorway, they'll tell you what they like and what they don't like. And it's customer feedback, customer engagement has actually helped to, in the beginning, it helped to expand the line to include styles that women wanted, that they demanded. The tunic length shirt because they wanted the buttocks to be covered, or the skirted pants because, hey, they don't believe in wearing pants outside in public. So that direct customer feedback actually informed me when it came to the design of the line or the redesign of certain garments. So it's super critical to listen to your customer base. But I've discovered doing local pop-up events that's the best way to engage. I love, it's a lot of work, but I love engaging with customers in person. So Splash Gear does not have a brick and mortar. It's always been an e-commerce site, but having the ability to set up a booth and have customers come by, customers who are fans or new customers, and then just listening to them when it comes to how they use the swimwear, what they use it for. So that informs me. And just listening to their needs. So just engaging in person, face to face, has been, I think, very valuable for me as a designer. And so I look forward to doing more of that.
Thank you. A question from Fiona for Leah. Can you speak to the backlash that exists towards the body positive movement in the form of fat stigma and fat shaming, and the problematic judgments that are made against fat bodies in relationship to quote unquote health? How much does this play into brand resistance to embracing a truly inclusive approach?
Wow, that's very in-depth. Now they're gonna make me think. Yeah, so we talked a little bit, we covered a little bit about the question of what is too big, right? I think Shireen said something about that too. It's just like, okay, we do 3 and 4X, we go to 5 and 6, 7X. And so that's always a thing of like, what's too big in this industry, right? What we're seeing in the body positive movement in regards to health is that I call them smaller fats. So it could be anywhere from like a 10 to 14, 16. And then anything above that, like, just, I guess, fat. These are like my own terms, but smaller fat has definitely gotten its term now, because you're fat, but you're just a smaller version. And so there's been a lot of backlash in regards to, okay, well, these smaller fats are healthier. They take care of themselves. They're just, but anyone over this size of 18, oh, you're the kind of fat that I can't deal with because now you're not healthy. So now it's always about your health. And so that seems to be a lot of the arguments of people thinking that fat phobia is okay, not just with companies, but with society, where it's just like, okay, you're an acceptable fat, but you're not, right? And that's when it becomes an issue, because you're still falling into fat phobia when you're accepting one body type or one size or whatever person fits into your parameters, but you're not accepting the other. when at the end of the day, we're all having issues because we are seen as othered, right? The world doesn't cater to us in the way it caters to a straight size individual. And so there is a lot of backlash on that. I've had backlash on my platform personally, where I post something about like fat phobia, and people are like, you're not a good role model because you're promoting obesity and health, da 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 da. And at the end of the day, your health is no one's issue, because there are individuals who are straight size who can't walk up a flight of steps, or smokes a pack of cigarettes a day, or does all types of stuff. But because outwardly they look healthy, then they are more accepted. And I think that's why we have to have discussions about fat phobia and ingrained fat phobia, because we all have it. There's also what I like to call fat on fat crime, which is, so for example, there is a company that was using an apple-shaped influencer. As you know, the shape for plus size models right now is the pear shape, where it's like little bitty waist, big boobs, little arms, no double chin, and thighs and butt. And so that is the beauty standard for plus size individuals right now. So you very rarely, if never, see an apple-shaped individual who is top heavy, right? And so this company wanted to deviate from the standard and use an apple-shaped individual. When I tell you that the plus size women were going in on her, they are using words like flattering, which I cannot stand, because flattering doesn't, I think that's, again, another fatphobic term. It's another body shaming term that we use. If someone thinks a crop top is flattering, no matter if they're size 0 or 36, that's their business. We should stop using the word flattering. Honestly, it lost its value at some point, because they use these words to shame. And so they were shaming her. And I got on there, I was like, we are our own worst enemies sometimes, because we're trying to do things, use dark skin models, use models with acne, use models who are not curvy in the right places, who don't have a Coke bottle shape. And you guys really come on a plus size company's website who is trying to do the right thing by actually doing what they say they're going to do. And you guys in return shame this woman, make this woman feel bad, when all her life she's been made to feel bad because the way God or the universe has made her body. And so it's a lot. We have a lot of layers and a lot of levels to break through in the plus size, not just the modest community, when it comes to brands working with small fats, but not working with size 26 influencers. There's a lot to break through. It's still pretty bad if you look on it from the business perspective, because I'm seeing things that I'm not happy about. And you know, I'm just really, I think the end result is for us to make sure that we are promoting things that we want to see. So if you see a company who is promoting a model who is modest and they hadn't before, if you see a model with natural hair that they hadn't used before, or apple-shaped model or super plus model, we need to like be sharing it, liking it, buying the dress. We need to put our money where our mouths are and start like supporting these companies who are trying to make a change, whether this little or big, instead of shaming the person for putting themselves out there and being vulnerable and trying to break the stigma of size inclusivity and colorism and all this stuff. So it's a lot, but there are activists out here talking about it and being loud. No matter how much they try to silence us, we're still here. You might have to dig a little bit deeper because we're not mainstream, but we need to start applauding companies and individuals who are taking the leap to show us that there are other different kinds of beauty that need to be showcased.
Thank you. We have a question for all panelists from Suad Abdul Kabir, who is a contributor to the Contemporary Muslims catalog. She says, I find a lot of modest fashion is so not design inclusive, meaning the color palette is often muted and the prints are few and far in between, and even different kinds of cuts and no African prints. Do you have any idea why that is? And are there designers and brands you would recommend for the modest fashion consumer who likes color and print and edgier style?
I know I just talked about, I'm gonna take this before I forget my thoughts. it is very sad that that is 100% true. So I, I'm an influencer and I know all the brands, and, I work with a couple of them, and there's a couple in particular that I've been looking at recently, and I'm looking at their clothing and they have great colors, prints, all the cute stuff, like little dresses and the tops. And then you put 2X, 3X, not available, not available, not available, or they don't make it at all. And I start to see, as you start to come up in the size, the colors and the prints and the cuts start to change. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're a plus size company. How are you gonna place somebody who's like in the upper sizes? And I have not said anything about it yet, but I'm probably gonna have to blast some names because it needs to be said. You're playing games. Who says that people who are modest or plus size want to wear browns and grays and blacks? Like, how dare you? Like, I mean, you see what I have on right now, and this isn't even all the colors that I own. I love neons and stripes and feathers and sequins. And how dare you be a plus size company and still be exclusive in a plus size company? It is disgusting. It's happening. I have not done the call out yet, but will soon, because it needs to be called out. And hopefully these call outs and these conversations will get people to be like, yo, we need to have like more cuts and more stuff for our plus size individuals. If you say you make clothes for plus size women, make clothes for plus size women. That's it.
Yeah, so I actually would like to answer that question as well, because so in the Splash Girl line, all sizes, we make the same color options, same style options in all the sizes, so misses or plus. So that's not an issue for us. But what was an issue was in the very beginning, the first colorway that I launched, and Leah probably won't like to hear this, but it was Hawaiian print. And I figured, well, Hawaiian print is logical because this is swimwear, it's vacation, it's resort, Hawaiian print is always in style. So I actually had a Hawaiian print collection, and purple, ocean blue, navy, a couple of different black prints, and I thought it was logical, and I've always been raised in a Western environment. I've been raised in California since I was 10 years old, so I'm just very exposed to that kind of culture. So I thought it made sense and it was logical, but it turns out no. The vast majority of my customers didn't want Hawaiian print; they wanted solid. And some were like, oh, it's too gaudy, it's too loud. Others like, I don't like flowers. I'm like, okay. And so the feedback was from at least, from some customers was athletic stripe. Can you please make athletic stripe? So we did. So we made an athletic stripe, and it's tricky. It's very tricky. I cannot offer edgy prints, quote unquote edgy prints, because my customer base is just not going to buy it. So here's the issue. You've got design, you got creativity, you want inclusivity, but the bottom line is the dollar, unfortunately. Can I move product? If I can't move product, I can't make it. So I do get feedback from some friends and some customers, oh, you should make this print and you should offer this print and I've just shied away from it because I did the print thing and nobody liked it and it didn't sell as well. It sold well with the non-Muslim customers, but it did not sell well with the Muslim customers. They were just more conservative that way. So for me, I would have to take the pulse. And I even did a focus group. That was the crazy part. I even did a focus group and they're like, oh yeah, this print and this print and this print. And when it came to launch time, the solids sold way more. I sold out of the solids and the Hawaiian prints did not sell out. So I'm gun shy when it comes to offering certain prints. I would love to offer prints. I'm a print person. I wear prints. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when it comes to offering it, it's tricky. It's tricky to take the pulse of the consumer. People may say, yeah, that's a nice print. The question is, will you buy it? Are you going to buy this or not? That's a different question. Are you going to wear it? Oh, that's a pretty print. Are you going to wear it? No. Well, then thank you for your opinion, but that doesn't help me because I need to move product. I need to sell. So there is a tricky balancing act there. Now, when it comes to colors, what I discovered, and I think some other brands in this field found out the hard way, there's certain colors you can't use because they become transparent when wet. And the whole point is to make modest swimwear. I can't offer a white, shirt because when it gets wet, you'll see right through it. So when it came to the colors, I did find colors that met several criteria. and have used those. And I'd like to offer more colors, but again, I have to find a way to not make them transparent. So in my direct specific field, there are a lot of different variables. How does it look out of the water? How does it look in the water? How does it look when you come back out of the water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it UV protective? So there are a lot of different moving parts that I need to consider. And so it's not straight up like regular fashion, street fashion. Swimwear, modest swimwear is a little bit different and has other issues involved. But I'm really sad when it comes to the prints, because I want to offer prints. I'd like to offer other colors. But if the consumer isn't going to buy it, and if that inventory sits, then it just hurts. So I totally get what Leia's saying, and she's right. But there is that consumerist commercial. There is that commercial aspect that a business has to take into account. It has to take into account the bottom line. Otherwise, it won't survive.
Thank you. Karim, do you have anything you want to add?
It's exactly what Shireen says. Like, you need to sell stuff, and it was like it was worse 10 years ago. Now we're getting there. 10 years ago, if it's plus size, it has to be a dark color, and no place. No frills. That's it. We do something for you, 3 colors, and that's it. And the same thing over and over again. Now it's changing. I see a lot of new designers, upcoming designers, doing some other stuff. Like, I even see Leopard design swimsuits at Modernisa today. It's real, and it's one of the top selling swimsuits, burkinis here at Modernisa. But it's right now, the demand needs to come there. Demand needs to say that I want florals, I want fluorescent colors. Then people, of course, will follow that. It's like the dog that Sheen has. We also had the same thing. We are trying to convince people, go out of the box, try little by little, and see who likes what. And don't forget that in US, the body inclusivity is way ahead than the world. Like, when you look to the other parts of the world, if you compare it. That's why you need to think about the common sense, and you need to produce depending on that. But there are brands, and there are new brands are coming to cater to that need, that style and color need.
Well, and as you mentioned that, I'm going to ask our last question because we are coming up on time. It's a question for you, Karim, from Mariam. And she says, we as entrepreneurs in the modest fashion industry are so proud of what you've done to the market at Modernisa. And now, as I start with a new modest fashion brand, what is your advice to stand out and go international?
Oh, we need to talk, first of all. Like, I would love to carry all the designers all around the world. Now, in 3 to 6 months, we're going to be launching a global marketplace where anyone can plug in and sell their stuff without sending their stuff to Modernisa. Therefore, Shireen can plug in and list their products, and we list her products, and she can choose the countries that she wants to serve to. That's how we can build a great community together, and we can also add new tastes to the platform together.
Thank you so much. So we're going to wrap up here today. I would like everyone, if you could, please give a big virtual round of applause to our panelists for joining us today. Thank you to our audience for your questions, and a special big thanks to the Cooper Hewitt and its team, including Susan, Vaso, Megan, Darnell, and Chris, for hosting this virtual event. Be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.